Story 1. Back in the day, girls would say they wanted a guy over 6 feet, and guys would say they wanted a girl who was a solid 10. But then they'd meet, make each other laugh, and suddenly a guy who was 5'9" and a girl who was a 6 with makeup would be good enough for each other. Now all you have are pictures and statistics. There's no opportunity to charm someone, no chance to win them over. You can basically filter out the undesirable qualities, never realizing you may have swiped a soulmate out of your life. Obviously, it's getting worse as people are more reluctant to leave the house and, therefore, more reliant on online dating. Story 2. A combination of people relying too much on applications, or even entirely on them, and entertainment at home alone has become a lot more fun than ever before. Story 3. I found myself unexpectedly single in 2021 after a 10-year marriage, and every dating app is disappointing now. Many features don't even exist anymore, like letting you search for people instead of just relying on what the algorithm decides to show you. OkCupid used to show you a person's message response rate, allowing you to save time if they never responded to anyone. I feel like there are way more bots and scammers now. Meanwhile, people aren't drinking as much, so bars aren't a great option. As a 40-year-old with a full-time job, friends and family to spend time with, and a house and pets to take care of, I don't have the free time to attend random meetup groups or volunteer, hoping to maybe meet someone. Story 4. Online dating has made it possible to interact with many different people, which creates a paradox of choice. Many more options measured against the same old preferences. Nobody is willing to compromise or put in the effort to get to know a person when there are 250 other faces on your phone to swipe at. And this is on top of all the other things that have made socializing challenging over the last 20 or so years. Everything is expensive, and a lot of people have started to behave in real life the way people do on Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter. Story 5. There is no dating scene anymore. It's just a bunch of people on cell phones, all desperately trying to find the most attractive person possible. Everyone else just stays at home or spends time with friends and family because it's cheaper and more entertaining to be at home, or at someone else's home than it is to spend $20 on 3 beers in a bar. Story 6. As an average-looking guy, dating applications are not easy. If you're a good-looking guy, like some of my friends, it's absolutely a different experience. Applications really affect self-esteem, at least mine. Story 7. As someone who has not had to care about this for over 10 years but has friends who constantly talk about it, I think people have gotten too stringent about how we view social relationships. We've made all these unofficial rules about dating, courting, and friendship. Relationships don't really naturally occur anymore. Everyone has to be on the exact same page at the exact same time in the exact same place, and sparks have to fly immediately. I was either here or on YouTube a while ago, and someone said it was weird to have your significant other be your friend first, that guys try to manipulate women into being their friends first and then spring a relationship on them. Or maybe they got to know you first and decided they could see themselves with you more intimately. I don't know, man. There are too many extra rules when the only rules that really matter are consent, safety, and shared interest. Story 8. It is harder than I thought to meet people organically. At my age, a lot of my peers are married or in long-term relationships, so it is not like we go out as a group anymore. I do not like approaching men on my own. Story 9. It sucks. The applications are terrible, and people have unrealistic expectations. Ghosting is common, and nobody wants to invest any time in a person. It's all about me, me, me. The best I've seen is meeting friends of friends, but being social has also become more difficult, creating a cascading effect. Combine that with working from home and the high cost of living, and yes, I've mostly given up. Story 10. I keep getting led on by guys taking me on a few dates and then saying, by the way, I'm not looking for anything serious, but we can be friends with benefits. And I'm about to rip my hair out. Story 11. Someone has to solve this. If there are 100 people and everyone wants the 5% unicorn, do we take turns riding the 5 unicorns? Or do 5 people get the unicorns and the other 95 figure something else out? Because right now we're taking turns trying to ride the 5 unicorns. Story 12. Last date I went on, I asked the girl if we were going to see each other again, and she replied, no thanks, I was just in it for the food. Then we went our separate ways. She went to friends, I went to an empty home. All I wanted was companionship, and all she wanted was free food. Went on one in college through online dating. Cute girl. Wasn't the same person I met. The person I met was twice the size and smelled like she just ate a bloomin' onion from Outback Steakhouse. No dishing on the weight, it was objectively a different person. Tried to go bowling with people we both knew after we ate and she no-showed, followed by ghosting. So no, dating is not easy. Story 13. I lasted for 30 minutes on a dating application before I deleted it. I was disturbed by the way I found myself feeling about people. They became these options where you would look for faults. I didn't like the way it made me feel about myself and other people. Swipe, swipe, maybe. Oh, hates dogs? Swipe. Story 14. People are out of practice at chatting with each other in the usual default physical world. They don't have places where they meet strangers anymore because many of our third places, such as not home, not work, or school, have been eroded by online spaces and economic hardship. People go out less for civic clubs and places where they would otherwise meet. Story 15. Here is the issue. Girls have a lot of options, but most of them are terrible. Guys have a ton of competition, but are 90% the same generic person. Have you ever eaten at a restaurant by a lake with a dock, and you can throw a fry in the water and 40 carp all spring out of the water at the fry? That's what the majority of guys are in online dating, carp. So stop hanging out with the other 40 carp at the dock, jumping at every girl that throws a fry in the water. Nobody wants to get a fish from that terrible place. Story 16. Here's my take on male-female dating. Too many unpleasant men have made women uncomfortable by how they express their interest at best. Women, by and large, have been listing all the ways they never want men to express said interest. Nearly 30 years for me of hearing, never ask her out at the gym, or never ask her out at a bar, or don't ask her out after becoming friends. Decent guys listened and pulled back heavily from expressing interest in real life, as they don't have any socially acceptable ways to pursue women. Unpleasant guys didn't bother listening and aren't changing their behavior. Dating apps were decent but have gotten so much worse, with men feeling more and more depressed as women rarely put in any effort. Matches are withheld, and so are leaving in droves. Compounding this is a lessening empathy for women's struggles with dating because these guys feel punished for listening to women. Women aren't changing their behavior and watching them complain about being thirsty to a guy dying in a desert because it's so hard to sift through all of my many options. Feels tone deaf at best. So how does this improve? Remove capitalism. Make a dating app that is intentionally made to match people with partners. Remove dating apps. Have women agree to a way guys can express their interest, in a way where he is okay with being rejected, like, hey, I know you probably hate when guys do this and I really don't ever do this, but do you mind if I give you my number? Make it some way where she understands he is not trying to make her uncomfortable and it won't be any kind of issue should she reject his advances. Remove dated gender norms. Women need to start initiating conversations in real life with guys they think are cute, as the guys have been beaten over the head with don't make her uncomfortable. And too many have internalized it because they don't want to be anything resembling those unpleasant guys. However, if he knows his advances are welcome, it's a different story. There's a guy called Matthew Hussey who explains this well. I really think a lot of guys have listened to women's perspective on this, but this guy is the best communicator of explaining men's perspective to women that I've found. He's empathetic to their position and issues, but highlights a perspective it seems many have never considered. So yeah, I don't see it getting better anytime soon. One last note, we all agree overconsumption of pornography can lead to men having warped views of sex and intimacy, right? Is it hard to imagine that the sheer magnitudes of poor romance content and the overconsumption of it by women are giving them flawed ideas of romance? Because the crux of every romance book I've read typically boils down to men romance, women get romanced. And it's maybe not an active thought, but it is seemingly an extremely common belief among women. Story 17. Obviously purely anecdotal, but yes, I had way more fun with dating 20 years ago. It was less hostile and much more optimistic. What was once a lot of hope about the future is replaced by the unease that everyone is one swipe away from jumping ship, which in turn makes you not want to invest in anybody. Apps are the Ouroboros of dating. Story 18. Lack of being social, likable, and respectful. Far too many people seemingly have a debilitating mentality that causes them to be too anxious to go out. People are lacking the ability to read social cues and body language and either underreact or steamroll past the too much line, making them awkward to interact with and then unlikable. Respect has gone out the window for all genders. People are more crude, callous, do not apologize or take any accountability, and are not humble. Story 19. I had a girl on a dating application tell me that if I was a good man, I would let her prostitute, because a loving boyfriend doesn't care what his girlfriend does when she is alone. Story 20. The dating world is a barren wasteland online. Outside of bars and nightclubs, it is generally difficult to strike up a conversation with someone else. People have been antisocial and defensive post-COVID. Story 21. My biggest issue as an app user is that most of the guys are not interested in going on dates. We move to texting and I'll ask about getting together and it does not happen. I am not on the app for pen pals or new Snapchat friends. I am actually looking for men to go on dates with and get to know them, but that does not seem to be the case for most others out there. Story 22. I think it is brutal. I have a buddy who went through a divorce years ago. He's a great guy, solid looker, and very successful businessman, and he was approached by 6 women in the company in the weeks after the news got out. He declined them all as he knew the title and salary were what they were interested in. So he tried online dating and found that if he was honest, the money seekers lit up looking for a sugar daddy, but if he didn't mention his occupation, he got literally 0 matches over months. He was despondent until, as part of a running group, he met the woman who is now his wife. She had no idea about his money and didn't care. They hit it off naturally, and upon discovering she asks nothing. She has been fine flying first class to nice vacations, but she loves him, and that's what he wanted so badly. To me, this illustrates how things have gone wrong. This guy was 100% a catch, but take away those places and put it through an algorithm, he had basically no chance to find love. It's also transactional and cold without the sweet, how'd you meet? Stories where natural human connection can take hold. Over and over I see folks who avoid it manage, while those that go through the numbers game come out much more cynical because the vast majority of us are lucky to get a 1% success rate. That amount of rejection damages people and their sense of self-worth. Story 23. Opted out before I even really tried. Who has time for this? I got ghosted and rejected enough when applying for university and then even more when applying for jobs. I really don't have it in me to face down the final boss of rejection, which is modern online dating. Story 24. As a guy, 10 years ago you would still have to work hard, but you would get some response. Nowadays, you can send a million messages that will funnel to about 2% responses, and of those responses, a percentage will actually continue talking to you. Then, of that, a small percentage will exchange numbers and finally filter out to a small percent that will go on a date with you. Story 25. 6'10" firefighter and paramedic, unable to get any matches or feedback on dating profiles. Well, minor feedback, almost exclusively negative comments and unhelpful criticism with very few tidbits of actually helpful advice. Spent the last 6 months on and off over Hinge, Bumble, Tinder in the heart of Pittsburgh, and it feels like I'm invisible or something. Approaching people in person is difficult. The social norms around asking a girl for her number or similar have changed quite a bit, I feel like. Although part of that is just me being out of the dating pool for over 10 years. Maybe it's just my area. But even striking up a conversation with someone at a bar or just out and about can feel inappropriate or uncomfortable for either or both parties. Story 26. In my experience, dating is the same as it ever was, but meeting people to date has become much more difficult. Dating applications promote superficial, shallow interactions, and few people who participate in singles nights, go to clubs, and so on are worth meeting. All the single people I would be interested in are just out there living their lives, and our paths shall never meet. Story 27. What if we turned dating into the absolutely brutal job application process, and it ends up making everyone more miserable? Some Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs. Story 28. I moved to the Pacific Northwest in 2019. Every LGBT person out here is either polyamorous, too far left, or both. Gay dating with the goal of marriage is nearly impossible here. Story 29. Yeah, and when you complain about it, you get called an involuntarily celibate person by privileged people and gaslit by people who haven't dated in forever, saying it's just so easy, and you're obviously just doing something wrong. It's allegedly a major cause of many men swinging hard to right-wing fascistic ideologies in recent years. I feel like Match Group needs to be held accountable for what they've done by profiting off human misery. But no, that goes against my freedoms or something.